So what has been observed in the countries where COVID cases have been reported is that the risk of severe disease and not the risk of infection, and we need to differentiate between the two, because when we talk about the risk of infection, it's for you to get the disease. The disease can be contracted by anyone, regardless of whether they have any underlying disease or not. So the risk of getting infected is dependent on one, your levels of hygiene. If you don't observe very good hygiene, then your risk of exposure of getting the infection is high. Then if you also get into very close contact with someone with a disease, then the risk of you getting infected with COVID-19 is high. So, but that is distinct from the risk of getting severe disease. So when you are infected, the risk of you getting severe disease depends a lot on the other underlying diseases that you may have. And the observation in the countries where COVID-19 cases have been treated is that persons with underlying chronic medical conditions like hypertension, cardiovascular disease, or diabetes are at a higher risk of suffering from severe disease. Now, there is currently not a lot of evidence on whether HIV or TB patients actually at a higher risk of suffering from severe COVID-19 disease, but theoretically it is assumed that since HIV and TBs reduce the immune system for people who are affected by the two diseases, so the risk of actually suffering from severe COVID disease would be higher in patients that have HIV and TB. But this is something that is still under investigation, and it's actually a major concern for all countries in Africa, because the burden of TB and HIV is higher in Africa. So as the COVID-19 outbreak or pandemic takes root in Africa, there is a big worry that we may actually see even higher mortality rates than even seen in the Western countries, where these two diseases are not as prevalent as in Africa. So, but the studies are being done, and the evidence will be shared as it emerges on whether patients with TB and HIV are at higher risk of suffering from severe COVID disease symptoms.